Good evening, dear friends. This is Santa Claus with you on this September 29, 2025, bringing you the day's tidings as autumn begins to spread its golden touch across the Northern Hemisphere. On this historic day, we remember that 102 years ago, the British mandate for establishing a Jewish homeland in Palestine came into force. How the seeds of history continue to bloom and sometimes trouble us in our present day. Speaking of troubled waters, our friends in Washington are once again facing the prospect of a government shutdown as congressional leaders head to the White House for discussions with President Trump. My heart goes heavy when I think of the hardworking federal employees who may face furloughs if an agreement isn't reached by tomorrow night. As Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer noted, this meeting is but a first step, and I pray our leaders will remember that true negotiation requires both giving and receiving, just as we all must learn in this life. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, eyes turn to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu as he meets with President Trump today regarding a Gaza peace proposal. The United Arab Emirates is urging acceptance of this 21-point plan that would see the return of hostages, the release of Palestinian prisoners, and a pathway toward governance without Hamas involvement. Oh, how I wish for peace in that troubled land where the Prince of Peace once walked. The proposal speaks of rebuilding and renewal, things my workshop elves and I know something about, and perhaps even a path to Palestinian statehood that so many have long hoped for. Now, turning our attention to Moldova, where a ray of hope shines. The small but geopolitically significant nation has given its pro-Western governing party a clear parliamentary majority, choosing a path toward European integration. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen's words ring true. You made your choice clear. Europe, democracy, freedom. In these troubled times, it warms my heart to see people standing firm in their convictions despite attempts to sow division. Across Europe's skies, however, tensions continue as NATO responds to airspace violations with increased surveillance. The troubling drone incidents near Denmark's airports and military bases have prompted France, Germany, and Sweden to bolster their neighbors' defenses. Polish Foreign Minister Radek Sikorski's stern warning to Russia reminds us that even Santa must sometimes be firm when boundaries are crossed. I pray for wisdom among leaders as they seek to protect their people while avoiding further escalation. In a distressing development from Iraq, a court has sentenced a man to life imprisonment for trafficking fighters to join the Russian army in Ukraine. This reminds us how conflict in one region can reach its tendrils into distant lands, pulling the vulnerable into its grasp. We must always be vigilant against those who would exploit others for profit, especially in times of war. Some encouraging news comes from Afghanistan, where the Taliban have released another American citizen from custody as part of broader talks with the United States. This goodwill gesture might help support ongoing discussions about economic and security issues between the two nations. Remember, my friends, that even in the most difficult relationships, small acts of goodwill can open doors to greater understanding. In a positive step toward addressing violence, the United States and Mexico have launched a joint initiative to tackle cross-border gun trafficking. By expanding the use of tracing tools and increasing joint investigations, both countries hope to reduce the flow of weapons that fuel cartel violence. As I often say to the elves, true solutions require working together across borders and differences. My heart grows heavy as we turn to Madagascar, where police have targeted protesters who gathered to voice concerns about water and electricity outages. The reported deaths and violence remind us that the right to be heard is precious and that those in authority bear a special responsibility to protect the vulnerable. Let us hold the people of Madagascar in our thoughts during this difficult time. In the world of business, Lufthansa has announced plans to cut 4,000 administrative positions by 2030, citing artificial intelligence and digitalization as factors. This follows similar news from Bosch, which plans to cut 13,000 jobs. While innovation brings many gifts, we must never forget the human cost of progress and ensure that no one is left behind as we embrace new technology. Finally, in agricultural news, Australian beef has replaced American supply in China's markets since President Trump returned to office, with U.S. shipments falling dramatically following permit expirations and amid ongoing trade tensions. This shift has redirected hundreds of millions of dollars from American cattle farmers to Australian producers, showing how policy decisions ripple through the lives of hardworking people around the world. As we conclude tonight's news, I remind you all that behind every headline are real people with hopes, dreams, and needs. In these challenging times, may we all find ways to be lights in the darkness for one another, sharing what we have with generous hearts. This is Santa Claus, wishing you peace and goodwill until we meet again.